Ever wondered why someone is described as having a chip on their shoulder? It sounds like a curious mix of carpentry and posture, but its origins are far more confrontational and historically rich than you might expect. The phrase, chip on your shoulder, is commonly understood today to describe someone who is harboring resentment or grievance, often with a touch of defiance. But how did such an expression come about? Travel back to the early 19th century in the US and Canada. The term had a literal component to it initially. Imagine a young man feeling wronged or eager to display his toughness, placing an actual wood chip on his shoulder. This act wasn't just for show. It was an open challenge, a dare for anyone to knock the chip off, effectively accepting an invitation to a brawl. The earliest known reference to this practice appears in a letter from James Kirk Paulding in 1816. He describes a man riding furiously on horseback, declaring his readiness to fight anyone who dared to provoke him, akin to the act of knocking a chip off someone's shoulder. This indicates that, even at this time, the gesture was well recognized as a symbol of provocation and readiness to engage in a fight. The tradition, interestingly enough, was not confined to adults. Historical records, like an 1830 article from the Long Island Telegraph, mention that boys would use this method to initiate fights. A chip would be placed on one boy's shoulder, and knocking it off would commence the altercation. By the mid-19th century, the phrase began to evolve from its literal sense to a more metaphorical use. In 1855, a writer for Portland's Weekly Oregonian used the phrase to describe a public challenge between two newspaper editors, illustrating how the term had started to encompass any act of defiance or invitation to dispute, not just physical altercations. So, when we talk about having a chip on one's shoulder today, we're invoking a centuries-old practice of signaling a challenge and showcasing readiness to confront issues, albeit in a more figurative sense. In summary, the phrase chip on your shoulder originates from a literal and combative practice where individuals would place a wood chip on their shoulder to signal a readiness to fight, symbolizing a challenge or grievance. Over time, this evolved into the metaphorical expression we use today, indicating someone who carries a grievance or defiance, stemming from a feeling of being treated unfairly.